Welcome back to Ant on Music. I'm your host, Ant. As I always start off every week when I drop one of these episodes, I ask you to please click like, leave a comment, share it, and most importantly, hit the subscribe button. Love to have everybody here. Want to see this grow. Usually when I come out every week, I throw out new stuff that's come out in the past week. And there's plenty of new stuff that has come out. I have gotten some new releases in the past week. But this week I want to do something different. And in case you didn't figure it out from the albums behind me or the shirt that I'm wearing, this week we're going to talk about 80s hair metal. Okay. Used to be an on-air radio personality at WRTN in New Rochelle. And I also was, in the show I was on was called Midnight Metal. And the other place where I worked was I was the station manager for my college radio station, WICR. I own a college radio in New Rochelle, which is now WIUR, because they're a university now. But what we're going to talk about this week is not the big bands, not the Motley Crues, not the Bon Jovis, not the Poisons, not the Skid Rows. We're talking about the mid-level bands, the club bands, the bands that really used to grind it out towards the end of the 80s mostly. Some of them earlier. So we're going to get into that. But it's time to, if you're a music lover, record collector, a crate digger, it's time for you to take it to the next level. If you dig the 80s and break out the bullet belts, Aquanet and spandex, because we're going to go on a deep dive on the hair farmers here and see what we got to share with you. First thing I'm going to show you is Badlands. Okay, this is obviously a promo copy that I got way back when I was working in radio, and it has here, includes Dreams in the Dark and Winter's Call. So much more on this album. High Wire, fantastic track. If you're unfamiliar with these guys, two big names that stand out are Ray Gillen and Eric Singer. Eric, as you know, went on to be the drummer in Kiss, and also Jakey Lee. I'm a big Jakey Lee fan. And, great chase on bass. Pretty solid foursome of guys. Ray went on to be in Red Dragon, Cartel. The other songs on this album that really stand out are Dreams in the Dark, Jade Song, Dancing on the Edge, Devil's Stomp, and Seasons. Pretty varied album here. If you dig stuff like Aerosmith, and Whitesnake, this is going to fill that void for you. They put out a few albums. This was their first. I think this was their best. Really good stuff. You may want to try and find this one if you're unfamiliar with it. Another one, Going Across the Pond. This, I think, is probably the first colored vinyl I ever got. And this is an old one, too. This is The Dogs d'Amour, led by Tyler. Okay, and this one, it's probably one of the only things I have to show you that's kind of funky this week. You've got front cover, rear cover, and the album itself, as they describe it, is a putrid lime green. This one's pretty cool. My favorite song from them isn't on this, which is called Drunk Like Me. That's on the Graveyard of Empty Bottles album. But this is the one that kind of kicked it off for them. They hung around for a while, but they didn't last too long. But they're definitely a band you want to check out. Definitely in the sleaze rock category. Apparently, if you weren't a cowboy, you dressed like a pirate back then. I'm guilty of that at the time. Next thing you're gonna look at is another Kiss connection, and one of my favorite bands from the early to mid '80s. Black and Blue. Okay, if you look at the back, you see this gentleman right here, Tommy Thayer. You all know him as being a member of Kiss. If you're new to hard rock of the 80s or heavy metal or hair metal, whatever you want to call it, Tommy was a great guitar slinger with Black and Blue before he hooked up with this Kiss camp. This has got some great tunes on it. Rockin' on Heaven's Door, Without Love, Stop the Lightning, Nature of the Beach, and Miss Mystery, and that's just side one. That side one is about as solid gets as far as 80s hair metal goes. Swing Time, Bombastic Plastic, We Got the Fire, Strange Things, and Two Wrongs Don't Make It Love. Good album. It's basic black. You know, you've got picture of the band inside, you know, liner notes on the other. Black and Blue, they put out, I believe, 4 albums over their career. That one's probably my favorite of the bunch. Now we're going to get into a little bit of story time, okay? We're going to take a look at one of these little guys, okay? This is Fem Fatal. I'll give you a closer look at the cover. All right. Yeah, Fem Fatal, that is autographed by the very talented and beautiful Lorraine Lewis. Here's another photo of the band on the back. And there we go. So you have her autograph there. And also on the front, it's hard to read, but it says, "To Anthony, Lust and Kisses." And inside it says Lorraine. Lorraine is she's super talented. She has since hooked up, since Janet Gardner has somewhat retired. She's coming back from Vixen, but she's not rejoined Vixen yet. Lorraine Lewis has recorded an album with the only other member of the classic lineup of Vixen, Roxy Petrucci, and they're assisted by 2 younger, newer members of the band. But this album, actually, you know, met Lorraine, saw them on tour, and the big song off this, the big single, was "Waiting for the Big One," which is track 1 on the album, which was a big MTV hit. "Back in Your Arms Again" is a great song. "Falling In and Out of Love." There's a lot of good stuff on this. I was talking to my buddy Kevin Lynch, my old college roommate, and talking about Femme Fatale and talking about Vixen. I said, hey, you know, because he doesn't really keep up with a lot of the hair metal bands, but I told him about Lorraine being in Vixen. He thought it was pretty cool. He goes, "Oh, I remember the time that they came into the club, and you know, I used to work at a couple of nightclubs, and they played there." And he actually told me, he goes, "Do you remember hitting on Lorraine Lewis?" I forgot. He goes, "Apparently, you know, after the show when I went up to Nasser for an autograph and all that stuff, apparently she was looking for a place to go eat, and you know, I suggested we go out for pizza." I have no memory of this, and if I offended Lorraine in any sort of way back in my younger, dumber days, I apologize. But that's another good one to try and pick up if you're out there crate digging. Femme Fatale, beautiful Lorraine Lewis. We're going to continue on with another little disc here. Let's see. This one, okay. This one right here. I want to talk about bands that were underrated and kind of missed the boat. Like they should have been bigger. I really should entitle this episode "I Could Have Been a Contender," because these were all bands that coulda, shoulda, and would have been bigger than they were. You know, a lot of them just, there was such a glut of bands back then that it was, you know, it was just so much. You know, it's like, it's funny because now I think there's so much more because of the internet, but you know, back then, that, you know, there was so many bands that were in the hard rock and heavy metal scene. It was overwhelming to keep up with them. But these guys are called the Hags, okay? And they basically put out the one album and one and done. And Half the Way Valley's a great song. Too Much T-Bone, Back to the Grind, Bunkbed Creek, and there's others on here. Another fantastic lost 80s hair metal classic. Totally dig the Hags. Definitely one of the underrated bands that came out at that time. Another one. Let's see. Let's go to another little disc. All right. So let's do this one. If you see behind me back there, you see Law and Order. Law and Order were a fantastic band. They put out a couple of albums. They were on the MCA Mechanics label, and they basically, you know, they went under. And it stinks because they had a great feel. They were kind of like Aerosmith in that way. Very bluesy, you know, in a lot of ways, almost with Sean's vocals, very, you know, almost had like a Southern vibe to them. And I interviewed them, seen them play a bunch of times, and they were kind enough to autograph the CD for me. You know, Phil was a great guy. He was a great interview. He's got Sean there as well. Rob Steele on drums. Rob was a rip. They went on, a couple of guys went on to continue on as Dogma. Shane was the vocalist. Sorry, Sean and Shane, I confuse them all the time. And Shane went on. He's done other stuff as well, more in line with country. But this had some fantastic tracks on this. I mean, this album was, for me, one of the best debuts that ever came out. I mean, We Don't See God. Let's see, what else? It's easy to read it off this. I Think It's Gonna Rain Today. No Love Lost. In the Shelter. Soul Inside. Delta Prison Blues. Your Sister Does. Fantastic, fantastic track. Say You Love Me. And Whiskey. Whiskey's a fantastic track. This is one, if you ever see this, if you're out crate digging or if you go on Discogs, you know, this is a fantastic album. This is definitely worth picking up. Another great hair metal casualty from back in the day. These guys were awesome and a lot of fun to hang out with. Speaking of hanging out, Dangerous Toys. All right. Dangerous Toys, you know, they come out of Texas and they definitely have that vibe. Another band in the, you know, the Aerosmith vein. They had, you know, a couple of big songs, Scared, Teasing and Pleasing, Take Me Drunk, Sportin' a Woody, which is a great, you know, tongue-in-cheek kind of song, Bones in the Gutter, Here Comes Trouble, 10 Boots Stompin'. And with these guys, you know, it's a basic black album. You got the liner notes and little story there that they put in. We'll leave it up for a second if you want to leave it, pause it, what have you. These guys opened up for The Cult on the Sonic Temple tour. And I was backstage for the show, and I happened to be backstage on the guest list for Dangerous Toys. Back when I worked at WRTN, I was on the guest list for that. And as luck should have it, I happened to be there, and their drummer, Mark Geary, you know, the band's record company had sent over a case of Jägermeister. And Mark Geary would not let me leave till I had had a couple of shots with him of Jägermeister. And it was really way more than a couple of shots. But, you know, when the band says, hey, gonna have a drink with us, it's kind of hard to say no. Do remember the Cult being on. It was a great show. Don't remember much afterward. Thank God I was not driving. But these guys were a lot of fun to hang out with, especially Mark. Mark was a trip. They also put out a couple albums. This one to me is the classic one for them. Good album to pick up if you ever see it out and about or wherever you get your stuff from. Pick it up. It's definitely worth a listen. We're going to continue on with another one of my favorites. These guys were stalwarts of the club scene. They were always out and about. They continued to put out music for a long, long time. And that is Dirty Looks. Dirty Looks, if you dig AC/DC, these are the guys for you. Their first album, which is back there, phenomenal. This is their second. This is Turn of the Screw. Also, really, really good album. And saw them play a couple of times. They rolled through the club that I worked in, one of the clubs I worked in. And they were kind enough to autograph the CD for me. Really nice. Henri Gostegard, the main man there. Like I said, if you dig AC/DC type, you know, hard rock, heavy metal, definitely, this is the band for you. I mean, they had a lot of good tracks on this. The title track, Nobody Rides for Free, which was a single and video back in the day. Come On, Frenchie. Hot Flash Jelly Roll, Always a Loser, Eliana, Slam Into the Big Beat, which is a fantastic song. Go Away, and also the closer, Have Some Balls. I mean, these guys, excellent, excellent stuff. Like I said, AC/DC, not a clone, but they have that same groove, that same vibe that AC/DC has. Definitely worth checking out. Moving right along, one of my favorites from the 80s. They just retired. Kicks. All right. This is the album like right before they got big. They had their one big moment in the sun with their fourth album. This one's the one before it. This is Midnight Dynamite. It's got some great tracks on there. Midnight Dynamite, Red Hot, Black and Blue, Bang Bang, Balls of Fire, Laying Rubber, Scarlet Fever, Crybaby, Cold Shower, Sex. You know, that's got just a fun chorus to sing, especially live in concert. They rolled through the club that this is Basic Black, nothing to see there. There's the band on the back. They rolled through the club that I worked at, and it was really cool. May have told this story before, but I'll give you the abbreviated version. Basically, they came in, they had everything set up, they were ready to do their thing, you know, which a lot of bands, believe it or not, the younger bands in the 80s, bands like Warrant, a lot of them ripped off their stage moves from Kicks. Kicks put on quite a show visually, not with big lights or anything like that, but just like almost like heavy metal boy band. You know, a lot of moves that were done in sync, no pun intended. They were just very upbeat, a lot of fun. They used to do a bit, they released tons of balloons into the crowd and stuff like that. I'm talking like giant balloons, like 3 foot, 4 foot in diameter. And they were always a good time. They were never not fun. They just called it a day recently. They just retired. Excellent band to see live. You know, unfortunately, I haven't seen them, but this night when they came into the club, to get back to the story, they came in, all set up, ready to go. Place is packed. I mean, beyond packed. People on top of people. Someone must have called the fire marshal. They came rolling in. They emptied the club out. And the funny thing was the band was filming it. The footage still hasn't seen the light of day. And now that they're retired, I hope they take the time to go through their vault and find this show, because they came out on stage knowing nobody was out there, and they had it all filmed, and it was really funny. They eventually let people back into the club at a much more manageable level, and they did their show. And as usual, if you've ever been to a Kick show, you know that it's fantastic. So on to the next one. Here's one. Very underrated band. They put out a couple of albums on majors. This was on Island. I picked this up at the infamous St. Mark's Sounds in the Village. I had a vinyl copy somewhere. I don't know where it got to. And this album is Vain. You know, No Respect. This album is pretty much, as far as hair metal goes, all killer, no filler. All right. Kicks off with Secrets, Beat the Bullet, Who's Watching You, 1,000 Degrees, Aces, Smoke and Shadows, No Respect, Laws Against Love, Down for the Third Time, Icy. Absolutely love that song. Without You, and Ready. Seen these guys live. You know, I've got the lyric sheet inside. Nothing really spectacular to look at here. Just wanted to mention them. Fantastic stuff. Davey Vain went on and he released some stuff solo as well. These guys should have been huge, but you know, when the album came out, basically things were moving on from that scene, and it just wasn't meant to be, I guess. But they were great. This is a fantastic album. If you get a chance to find this, pick it up. This is just rock solid, hard rock, heavy metal. The last thing we're going to take a look at is a box set. Okay, not a lot of lesser known bands have box sets, and these guys are pretty well known. In fact, they're probably, you know, the godfathers of all this music. Everybody owes a debt to these guys, and that is Hanoi Rocks. All right, these guys came from Finland, and everybody from that scene owes a debt to Hanoi Rocks. Mike Monroe, Nasty Suicide, Gyp Casino, Razzle. You know, I'm sure everybody knows the story of Razzle, the drummer from Hanoi Rocks, who was, you know, unfortunately killed in an accident with Vince Neil when Vince Neil was driving drunk. Really stupid stuff. They were about to embark on a tour. They had just put out their album, Two Steps from the Move, and they were ready. They were poised to be the next big thing. This box set, the Strange Boys box set, basically talks about, you know, encapsulates all their stuff prior to them being the next big thing here in America. The one thing that came about it was, you know, as far as doing the right thing was Guns N' Roses. They had Mike Monroe come in and sing some background vocals. This is the booklet that comes in it. All right. In the Strange Boys box. Basically talks about, you know, the history of the band. You know, I was really happy when they put this out a few years ago. Fantastic, fantastic albums. And we'll take a look at those. Not going to go through the whole book. So you have here the very first Hanoi Rocks album, Bangkok Shocks, Saigon Shakes, Hanoi Rocks. There you go on the back. I will say this, after they, you know, went their separate ways, you know, the boys, you know, some of them continued on music. Mike Monroe, this is the last of story time for the day. Mike Monroe has got to be a true gentleman as far as gentleman goes. I say this with all sincerity, he has to be the biggest gentleman in hard rock and heavy metal. And I thank my buddy Muncie Ritchie, who is the head of skateboard marketing, for bringing him into WRTN to interview. And, you know, thank you, Muncie. Mike Monroe is such a total gentleman. I arrived at the studio when I normally do, you know, about 11:15, 11:30 on a Saturday night. And who do I see there? Waiting in the parking lot, Muncie Ritchie with Mike Monroe, who I'm, you know, scheduled to interview. So my girlfriend at the time and I were there, and you know, I'm going to unload my stuff out of the back of the car to go into the studio, and you know, I've got crates of CDs and, you know, albums and whatnot. And Mike Monroe comes over. You know, and here's Mike Monroe. This is a guy that, you know, he is, as far as hair metal goes, he's like the godfather of this stuff, you know, in a lot of ways. And, you know, he is like, oh, let me help you with that, with his, you know, his Finnish accent. And I'm looking over at Muncie. I'm like, no, dude, I got it. And he's like, oh, no. And it's, Muncie just looks at me and goes, just let him do it. Because he's not going to take no for an answer. So I can honestly say that Mike Monroe of Hanoi Rocks fame was my roadie for a day. And Mike was very gracious. It was supposed to be like a short interview. I think he stayed like 2.5, 3 hours. He brought his harmonica. He was playing harmonica. He signed so much stuff for us. I have a Mike Monroe album. I have a couple of them. Another day I'll break those out. But Mike, you know, still to this day I will say is the nicest person I've ever met in rock and roll. On this one, we have the Oriental Beat. Not going to show you the back cover of this one because it will get us in trouble with censors. If you know the album, you know what I'm talking about. This has got some great tunes on here. It's got Lightning Bar Blues, Don't Follow Me, Motivating, MC Baby, Teenage Outsiders. This has some great tunes too. Tragedy, Village Girl, Don't Never Leave Me, Lost in the City, 11th Street Kids, Walking with My Angel. Great stuff. The Self-Destruction Blues, another one from Hanoi in this beautiful box set. It's pretty much, these are all, you know, basic black vinyl, nothing to show you inside really. Everything that you want to read about, see about's in the book. This one's got Love's an Injection, Kill City Kills, the title track, Beer and a Cigarette, Whispers in the Dark, Taxi Driver, which is a fantastic tune, and Dead by Christmas, or Dead by Xmas. All right. Then we're getting down to the last two in these. And this is Back to Mystery City. Strange Boys Play Weird Openings. Malibu Beach Nightmare, Mental Beat, Tooting Beck Wreck, Until I Get You, great song. Sailing Down the Tears, Lick Summer Love, Beating Gets Faster, Ice Cream Summer, and title track, Back to Mystery City. Definitely worth listening to. And this is where it all wrapped up for them. All Those Wasted Years. This is a double live album from them. Unfortunately, it's not a gatefold, but there is some, you know, photos of the band live on here, front and back there. And like I said, basic black, and, you know, more photos in back. And this is just, you know, a live document of where they were at the time. You know, it's got Pipeline, Oriental Beat, Back to Mystery City, Motivating, Till I Get You, Mental Beat, Don't Never Let Me Down, Tragedy, Malibu Beach Nightmare, Visitor, the 11th Street Kids, Taxi Driver, Lost in the City, Lightning Bar Blues, Beer and a Cigarette, Under My Wheels, I Feel Alright, and the Aerosmith influenced Train Kept a Rolling. But that's everything I have for you. This is, basically the underdogs, the unsung heroes of that generation. And that's not all of them. There's a lot more, but I just wanted to break out some of my favorites this week as opposed to new. And, show you more of what I've got going on in my collection as opposed to just, like I said, every new release that I pick up. Sometimes you need to take a break. Sometimes it's good to look back and dig into the vault, so to speak, and see what you got. As always, I thank you for stopping by. Thank you for your time. Subscribe. I really appreciate when people subscribe. Makes me happy. That'd be cool if you did. Be cool if you shared it with your friends. If you know someone that'd be into, listen to me babble for about 25 minutes, that's awesome. And as always, peace, one love, music. See everybody next week.